All right, let's take a look at some conversions using the factor label method. Converting between English and metric units requires some kind of math. That math is the factor label unit. So as we go from kilometers to miles between metric and English units here, we're going to have to do some math. We're going to have to set up some equations, punch some buttons on a calculator to get us there. Factor label method is also used when converting between English units like pints and pecks. Again, when we want to do that conversion, we're going to have to do some math. We're going to have to set up an equation, have some equivalences, punch some buttons on a calculator to get it done. That process is sometimes called dimensional analysis. Factor label and dimensional analysis are exactly the same thing. When we problem solve, we have to make sure we follow a process. We have to follow a thinking process to get us from given to unknown, given to answer. It should always start with identifying the given and the unknown. The given is the number we're starting with, the 55.0 kilometers. The unknown is what we're asked to find. We want to find the number of miles. We want to know where we're starting and ending in order to make sure we come up with a plan. So we can come up with a process to get us from point A to point B. If we don't take the time to figure this out, oftentimes we're just shooting in the dark. We don't know where we're going. We're wandering around aimlessly, and we never really find the answer to the problem. To do this factor label method, we're going to need an equivalence, and I've given everybody this sheet of equivalences. We're dealing with length measurements here, as miles and kilometers both measure length. It is a mix of metric and English units, so we end up using that bottom section under length measurements. What we're hoping to find is an equivalence that has both kilometers and miles in it. Because if we find an equivalence that has both kilometers and miles in it, this is a simple one-step problem. As we can see here, we have an equivalence that has kilometers and miles in it. So this is going to be a simple single one-step process. We're going to be able to go directly from kilometers to miles. In class I talked about this as a non-stop flight. We're going to be able to go straight from one unit to the other. There's no layover in between. Again, the process is going to involve the equivalence 1 kilometer equals 0.621 miles. That's the tool we're going to use to get there. In a flight, we use a plane. In factor label method, we use an equivalence to get from point A to point B. We start with our given. We're going to write our given, 55.0 kilometers over 1. Now that 1 doesn't do anything mathematically. It's there to remind us of one very important fact. It's to remind us that kilometers are in the numerator. We're going to have to cancel out that kilometer. This whole process of factor label or dimensional analysis is about unit cancellation. We have to cancel out the given unit, turn it into something else in order to find our answer. We need to cancel kilometers out. In order to do that, we have to make sure it appears in both the numerator and the denominator of our equation. So we know, because kilometers are in the numerator, when we set up our equivalence here as an equivalent statement or a fraction, we're going to put the kilometers on the bottom. The other number, the 0.621 miles, can go on top. This will cancel out the kilometers and leave us with miles, which is again what we were asked to find. We know we have this set up properly. Now it's time to do the math. When we do the math, it's going to be our first number, our 55.0, either times or divided by the 0.621. To figure out which it is, we look to see where that 1 is. If that 1 is on the bottom, as it is here, it's going to be multiplication. If the 1 had been on the top and the 0.621 on the bottom, we'd have been dividing. Punch it in a calculator. 55 times 0.621 is 34.155. Now, wait around that. Significant figures. In factor label method or dimensional analysis, you always look at your given measurement. You see how many significant figures it has, and you round your answer to match. 55.0 has 3 significant figures. The 5 and the 5, the non-zero integers, always count. Trailing zeros count if you have a decimal point. So there's 3 significant figures there. we're going to round our answer to 3 significant figures. That'll be the first one, that'll be the second one, that'll be the third one. Cutoff is between the 1 and the 5. The 1 is followed by a 5, so we round it up to a 2. We can drop the 5s because they're after the decimal point. Our answer, the number, is 34.2. The units can be the only thing left. That is miles. Again, this is an example of a direct conversion. It's a direct flight from kilometers to miles. We just have to use that one equivalence to get from point A to point B. That doesn't always happen, as is going to be the case in number 2, going from pints to pecks. Pints and pecks are dry volume measurements. So we look at our equivalences for dry volume measurements. When we look at this, there is no pint to peck equivalence. We have pints to quarts, we have pecks to quarts, but we don't have one that gets us directly from point A to point B. Our given again, write that down, 43.0 pints. Our unknown, some number of pecks. We got to figure out how to get from here to here, from pints to pecks. Without a direct equivalence, we're going to have to go through an intermediate unit. We're going to have to go through quarts. It's like that connection in the middle of a flight. You want to fly to Las Vegas, but there's no direct flight, so you have to fly from Charlotte to Atlanta, and then from Atlanta to Las Vegas. You have to take 2 different planes to get there. We're going to have to do a similar kind of thing here. We can't go directly from pints to pecks. So we're going to have to go from pints to quarts, and then from quarts to pecks, taking 2 different planes or using 2 different equivalences. Our pint to quart equivalence is 2 pints equals 1 quart. That's the first plane, the first flight. Then to get from quarts to pecks, we have to use this one. 8 quarts equals 1 peck. We're going to have to take 2 steps to get to our destination. Again, we're going to start by writing our given over 1. 43.0 pints over 1. And again, mathematically, that 1 does nothing. It's only there to tell us the pints are in the numerator. If we want to cancel them out, we have to put them in the denominator of that next step. We're going to use these numbers to fill in that equivalent statement or fraction. It's 2 pints, so the 2 goes on the bottom. 1 quart goes on the top. The pints will cancel. We'd be left with quarts. Again, quarts aren't what we want. They're just a stopover, a layover on the way between pints and pecks. We still need to get rid of them, and we will use this equivalence to get rid of them and turn it into the pecks that we want. We'll use the numbers from that equivalence to fill in that equivalent statement or fraction. Again, quarts on the top means we have to put quarts on the bottom. It's 8 quarts equals 1 peck. Again, that will cancel out those quarts, leave us nothing but pecks. The problem is set up correctly. We know that at this point. It's time for us to do the math. So it's 43.0 either times or divided by those numbers. Again, if the 1 is on the top, we're going to divide. 1 on the bottom, multiply. 1 on the top, divide. So we're going to divide by 2. 1 on the top, so we're going to divide by 8. 1 on the bottom, we multiplied by 0.621. 1 on the top, we divided by 2. 1 on the top, we divided by 8. We're basically ignoring all the 1s. When we put this in a calculator, I like to push the equal sign between things. So 43.0 divided by 2 equals. Divided by 8 equals. And I get 2.6875. Again, for significant figures, we look at that starting number. 3 significant figures again. The 2 non-zero integers count because they're always significant. The trailing 0 counts because of the decimal point. We have to round this to 3. 1, 2, 3. 8 is followed by a 7, so we'll round it up to a 9. The 7 and the 5 just get dropped. This is 2.69. Again, you need a unit, unit,